Hey guys, it's Shar and today is January 1st, 2018. So, Happy New Year to you. I hope that in this coming year you will find yourself closer to God, more rooted in Him, and having a wonderful relationship with our Lord that you're enjoying. I spoke in my previous video, the one I did yesterday, about doing this devotional called the 7-Day Reset with Jesus, and maybe doing it together and seeing if we can explore it together, share our thoughts. We can do it together and then meditate on it separately, and then share your thoughts or revelations in the comments, and then we can sort of get a community kind of thing going. So here we go with day one of the 7-Day Reset with Jesus. This is where the journey begins. Whether you've followed Jesus for years or are just now getting started, Jesus stands ready to reset your life. As it says in Hebrews 12, He is the author and perfecter of our faith. In John 8, Jesus meets a woman being rejected by the world. She's guilty, she's confused, she's alone. Watch how Jesus stands up for her and offers her a new way to live. The need for a fresh start isn't hard to find. Every day we fall short of God's best for our lives. We seek satisfaction in the wrong places, and we suffer as a result. Over the last several years, hundreds of thousands have joined in a simple prayer. Jesus, will you reset my... And you can fill in here what it is you want reset. What is it for you? Your faith, your self-image, your relationships? Whatever it is, we all need a reset, and Jesus is the reset. The goal of these 7 days is for you to spend time with Jesus, for us to spend time with Jesus, and experience the reset He has for us. One free from guilt and condemnation, and filled with faith, hope, and love. As we read today's passages, look for the radical contrast between the world's offer versus that of Jesus. He stands ready to meet with you. What is it you need Jesus to reset? So we go to Hebrews 12, and we start in verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion, who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting Him, He endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now He is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility He endured from sinful people. Then you won't become weary and give up. This is really interesting passage where Paul is talking about stripping off every weight that slows us down. That could be your worries, your cares. And then he says, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. Now, do not get bogged down in the trying to stop that particular sin. I'm not saying that you should keep sinning, not at all. And trying to explain this is something that Paul had a lot of he had to do a lot of explaining to try to qualify this in a way that people would understand and wouldn't accuse him of saying you should keep sinning. And I'm not saying you should keep sinning, not at all. But what he's saying is, you give that weight to Jesus. You don't carry the weight of that with you, because that can slow you down and that can trip you up. If you are so focused on that sin and you're taking your eyes off the Lord, who is the person who will remove the sin, who is the person who will initiate and perfect your faith. So it's the weight of the sin that so easily trips us up that Paul is talking about here. And so keep that in mind when you're looking at this passage again. And maybe go a little bit further into Hebrews 12, because Paul explains that a lot better than I probably did. But it's something that we can think about and pray about and see if God gives us some revelation in that area. Focus on our Jesus. He is the champion. He initiates your faith. He initiates that desire to stop sinning, and he is also the one who does it. He is the one who perfects it. He doesn't just initiate it and then you take the ball. He does the whole lot. You just keep your eyes focused on him and focused on the joy that awaits. And if we can keep our eyes on Jesus, then even when things are hard, if we are focused on him, we won't become weary and we won't give up, because he's holding us up. Okay? And then we go to John 8. Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives, but early the next morning he was back again at the temple. A crowd soon gathered. He sat down and taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. "Teacher," they said to Jesus, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." So, some very interesting stuff here. Clearly, this woman gets a reset. She gets a point. And in some movies, they actually show Jesus drawing a line in the sand. It's like, this is a point at which you can reset your life. No one is condemning you. I am not condemning you, and you can have a brand new start. And I think that's why they included this in the 7-day reset. But I want to talk a little bit about the writing in the dust. Yeah, so they come and they say, "We caught her in the act of adultery. Law of Moses has to stone her. What do you say?" And the first thing he does is stoop down and write in the dust with his finger. What is he writing? Why is he doing that? And then he says, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." And then he stoops down and he writes again. Why is he doing this? What is the significance of this? Well, if you think back to when the law was given, the law that they're referring here to, the law of Moses, when the law was given, when it was first written, it was written by the finger of God. And this is Jesus' way of saying, you come here asking me about the law. I wrote the law. So here they are standing before the writer of the law saying, well, the law says. And then Jesus says, that's great, let's keep the law. Go ahead, stone her. But only the one who's never sinned. That person can throw the first stone. And then he stoops down again and he writes again. Now, the law was given twice. We know that there's this joke that says the first person who broke all the 10 Commandments was Moses. Okay, so we know he broke the tablets and he had to go back up the mountain and and this time he had to do them himself. He had to write on the tablets himself and bring them down again. So this is an echoing back to those days when that happened. And Jesus is saying, I am the law fulfilled. I wrote the law, and I fulfilled the law. And it's an amazing and a beautiful moment. And so much of what Jesus does and the reason he does the things that he does ties back to something in the Old Testament, which draws a parallel between law and grace. It draws a parallel so that you can see that grace is fulfillment of the law, but you can also see how grace is different from the law. And that's something really interesting to think about. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. And then to the woman he says, go and sin no more. Now, back to this idea of us being able to be the controller of whether we can or cannot sin. Here's the thing. When the law was given, if we as human beings were able to keep the law, there would have been no need for Jesus to come. Clearly, it cannot be done without him. And so, again, the go and sin no more. Yes, he's saying to her that you've got a new start now. You don't need to be doing this thing that you've been doing. But remember that the only way you can do that is in him and in his strength. He is the author. He is the perfecter. He does the whole thing and you just go along for the journey. So don't go condemning yourselves either. This is something that we tend to do. We focus on our sins, and yes, if we've done something, it's bad and we shouldn't do it, and you wouldn't be here reading this along with me or listening to these videos if you were happily sinning. But the power to go and sin no more, it comes from Jesus. And so please bear that in mind. We are not trying to do everything in our own strength. So we've reset, we've come to Jesus, and we're saying, give us a new start, and we will rely on you to give us the strength to do what you're asking us to do. Okay, so that's today's devotional content for the 7-day reset with Jesus. I encourage you to go back and read those passages, Hebrews 12, 1 to 3. And if you feel so led, but good thing to maybe read the rest of the chapter and see how Paul expands on this, and how that can fit in with what we're trying to do. And the story in John 8, 1 to 11 is absolutely beautiful, because we are all that woman at some point in time in our lives. No matter what the sin is, it's all the same sin. It carries the same weight of sin. There are no degrees of sin. And so, even though we aren't prostitutes or adulterers, maybe we do other things in that way where all sin carries the same weight, then we are all at some point in time in our lives this woman. And Jesus is not condemning you, and if you stay with him, he will lead you out. Okay? Until next time, God bless you all.